Pixen wondered what had become of the cultists. Had they become the vampires which they now fought? It was always a possibility when Daedric are involved. Spiders, once such terrifyingly huge creatures, were now nothing to Pixen but target practice. Coffins, cages, and blood. Pixen wondered what they'd find further into the shrine. How deep did the vampire's influence stretch? Barbus barked enthusiastically. A massive influx of vampires, Pixen knew that it was time to bring his own Daedra to the fray. His Dremora had entered the fight, and all fell before him. The vampire fledgling went flying into the air, indiscriminately swinging away. Pixen knew that this fight could be his. A Nightmaster vampire fortunately focused on Barbus as Pixen hacked and slashed away. It was not long before the vampire fell. Dremora Lord chirped proudly. They appeared to be at the shrine of Clavicus Vile, an imperial sacrificed. Pixen stood before the shrine and prepared to speak. Lord Vile, I have a request of you.
By all means, let's hear it. It's the least I could do since you already helped me grant one final wish for my last worshippers. They were suffering so from vampirism and begged me for a cure. Then you came and ended their misery. I couldn't have planned it better myself. So, what's your heart's desire? What kind of deal can we strike?
I'm just here to reunite you with Barbus.
Ah, that insufferable pup! Forget it! Request denied! No deal! I'm glad to be rid of him, even if it does mean I'm stuck in this pitiful shrine in the back end of nowhere. Well, perhaps there is a way he could earn his place back at my side? Maybe. But no promises.
What's your offer?
There's an axe. An incredibly powerful axe. An axe powerful enough for me to have quite a bit of fun indeed. If you bring it to me, I'll grant you my boon. No strings attached, no messy surprises. At least not for you. As I recall, it's resting in Rock Burrow. Barbus can lead you right to it. Little Mutt might even earn his place back at my side.
Pixen knew his task now. So what's the story behind the rueful axe?
One of Clavicus's little Jess, a wizard named Sebastian Lord, had a daughter who worshipped her seed. When the daughter became a werewolf, it drove Sebastian over the edge. He couldn't stand to see his little girl take on such a bestial form. The wizard wished for the ability to end his daughter's curse. Clavicus gave him an axe.
Pixen was beginning to see what kind of Daedra Clavicus Vile was. The rueful axe, it would seem, was somewhat a ways away from their location, and so I will most certainly have to stop reading, skip a couple of chapters, and see you once the story gets juicy. Thank you for listening so far, and we will be back soon for part 2. After a day of travel, the Dragonborn had made it to Rime Rock Burrow, and inside he ventured. It was dark and misty within, and a strong wind blew through the cave, but Barbas was at his side. He was ready to face anything the cave may contain, but was not quite expecting a frost Atronach. He smashed it apart with ease, but still, it was rare to see a Daedra in Skyrim. And suddenly, the source of the Atronach had made itself known. Pixen chugged a whole bunch of potions in order to ready himself for the battle with what seemed like a powerful foe. Sebastian Lort was his name. Pixen only hoped he could crush in his skull before he became too much of a threat. Unfortunately, he could. While Sebastian Lort could deal a lot of damage, he could not take much himself, thus making it a fast, furious, and perilous fight, and the rueful axe was his. Which unfortunately meant the Pixen had to return all the way back to the shrine after having only just gotten here. Truly, Clavicus Vile is a devious, devious man, setting him a task that required such travel time. He perused Sebastian's literature before deciding there was nothing worth staying for. Out of the cave he leapt. And again, the book now details only his boring return, so I shall see you again when we get back to the juicy chapters. The Dragonborn travelled without pause back to Haymar's Shame, and it was dark and cold. Barbas was no doubt shortly behind him, and so he entered, hoping that Clavicus Vile would have no more inane requests, and that he could patch the relationship between the two spirits thusly. The shrine should now be clear of enemies, what with him having slaughtered his way through it beforehand. He trod on an axe that would hurt his big toe in days to come. He briefly wondered whether or not he had plundered this chest before. He had not. Nor had he taken that petty soul gem. The bloodied skull, however, the vampires could keep. Through the tunnels he chundered. Clavicus Vile surely was hidden quite deeply within this cave. himself lost again, but had found himself a nice, nifty book in doing so. He found the way. He did not find the way. So he ascended the slope in search of Clavicus Vile's visage. He had somehow... Oh, of course he had found the way. He had completely forgotten about the tunnel leading back out into daylight. It had been a long couple of days, spent mostly on the road, and this was not daylight, it was another part of the cave. Yet another blunder, but his brain was chilled and tired. Could you really blame him? He remembered the grisly vampire den, and beyond it Clavicus Vile would soon present himself. Here the statue of Clavicus Vile stood. Pixen hoped the following conversation would go well.
Ah, you've got the axe! And my dog! Splendid!
We're back. Now fulfill your end of the bargain.
Excellent work! A hero and his faithful companion retrieving the ancient artifact for the prince. It's almost storybook. Ah, but it almost seems a shame to give a weapon like that away, doesn't it? I suppose I could be persuaded to let you keep it. But only if you use the axe to kill Barbas. Simple as that.
No deal. Take back the axe and take back your Barbas.
Huh. You're no fun at all. Guess I'll have to make my own fun elsewhere. And with the pup back, I'll be restored to my full power. There's a whole world just waiting for me! I knew I could trust you. Yeah, dog gets master, master gets cosmic axe. Everyone's happy. Just get over here, mutt. Don't worry, I'll make sure he sees the light. I trusted you, now you trust me. Ah, that feels so much better. You forget how nice supreme power feels until you've been stuck in a cave for a few years. It's a shame you wished for something so dull as me taking back the mutt. Quite the lack of imagination on your part. A lack of ambition like that really ought to be punished. Perhaps by turning you into a worm, or maybe a few decades of... Oh, fine. Have my boon and be done with it. Got more interesting deals to make anyway.
And with that, Pixen found the item he had been truly coveting this whole time. The mask of Clavicus Vile. And that concludes another Daedric adventure of the quickly corrupting, by which I mean of the guy who's slowly going from hero to tool of the demons, the dragon.